Can I invite our other panelists to join us at this stage? Ray Newton-Smith, who's the Chief Executive of the Confederation of British Industry. Please make your way up here. Lavanya Chandrashekar, who's the CFO at Diageo, and Nicola Hodson, the Chief Executive of IBM UK and Ireland. Welcome to you. Please grab a seat. Welcome. I feel very outnumbered on this panel, and I'm delighted to be. Welcome to you all. Thank you for being here. Rain, let me start with you, because I want to just kickstart all the conversations that we will have over this week with some of the optimism and some of the opportunities that are out there. Where do you see the opportunities right now?
Well, I mean, we've just heard some amazing examples of those already, but I think one of the areas I'd really pick up on that speaks, I think, both to the UK, but also India's capability is thinking about trade and services. When we think about trade across borders, we so often think about goods moving across borders, and of course that's part of it, but if you think about cloud computing, if you think about our universities, if you think about creative industries, if you think about financial services, so much is provided through the way people can trade some of these things across borders and of course you can do that without having to travel now in the way that digital capabilities are so increasing. So for me, that is where over the next decade, I think we'll see so much growth and opportunity.
That's the dream, isn't it? But actually, when we talk about that sort of stuff as well, we see barriers go up. Much as globalization broke down so many of those barriers, protectionism is alive and well. Look at what's happening in the United States. Look at what's happening in China. Look at what's happening here in the UK. How do we get beyond that?
Well, I think, and that's just where the sort of the threat and the opportunity is. And I think it speaks to why we as business leaders and politicians on all sides have to speak up for free and fair trade and both what it has done for lifted generations out of poverty and also just with the opportunity it can to really make the most of some of the technological advances that we just heard about. I think if we sit in our countries and allow those barriers to come up, then we're not making the most of what our human capability is. So I do think that's why these sort of events and what we can do to make it easy for ideas to flow across borders, for people to learn from education, whether that's universities in India or also here in the UK, we've seen how much that has helped the UK to innovate and beyond.
Lavanya, welcome. Nice to see you. We spoke there with Kiran about the opportunities of India, and talk to me about how you see India within the business.
Well, Diageo is a big company with 200 brands. We work in 180 different countries. And yet with the big presence that we have in Scotch, in vodka, in rum, in gin, and tequila, I can go on, we're only a 4.6% market share of total beverage alcohol. And so 2 years ago, we set ourselves a target of going from 4% market share of total beverage alcohol in 2020 to 6% in 2030. And as we think about that opportunity, I mean, there's opportunity everywhere. There's a growing middle class consumer population everywhere. But India particularly stands out in that respect. There are going to be 600 million consumers coming of legal drinking age in the next 10 years. And a quarter of them are going to be in India. And this is an increasingly affluent consumer base. And so we think that there is huge opportunity for us to grow our business in the market. And what's fascinating about India is that it's a whiskey market.
I talked in the introduction about some of the headwinds that we faced, and I do want to focus on the opportunities. But do you, of course you do, but how much attention do you pay to the geopolitical issues around the world, and what bearing do they have on how you will execute business?
It has a huge impact on our business. I mean, we're a business where, our products come from a particular part of the world. Provenance is very important. You can't make Scotch outside Scotland. So much as the Indian consumer loves Scotch, it has to be transported out of Scotland into India. You can't make tequila out of in anywhere other than 4 provinces in Mexico. And so we rely on free trade, we rely on a world of geopolitical harmony for our business to thrive. And so that is extraordinarily important for us.
Nicola, hi, nice to see you. Two words I've heard a lot already, and we're only halfway through day one: AI and quantum. This is where you come in, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Talking to you about the revolutionary power of AI. And I don't mean just from a consumer point of view, because we already get a sense of how we as consumers may use it. What does it mean for business right now?
Yeah, look, you heard some figures just now, but I have one from PwC that says by 2030, AI will add $16 trillion to the global economy. That's bigger than the economies today of India and China put together. So it's huge. It's very, very significant. Of that 16 trillion, 7 will come from productivity savings, and 9 will come from side effects of consumerism on top of that. So super exciting. When you think about businesses, only 1% of business data is in any kind of AI model at the moment. So we have a long way to go, but some really exciting things going on. Last week, NatWest, one of Britain's biggest banks, announced Cora Plus, a chatbot, Gen AI enabled. We did some work with one of the NHS trusts in the UK. They've managed to save to deliver 700 extra hours with patients every single week. It's a 4-week project. It's a super small application of AI. We just launched a B2B marketing platform with WPP, Gen AI enabled. So you start to see a move from hype into production in business, but still a long way to go.
Yeah, we're speaking to NatWest actually later in the week about their applications of it and what that will mean. And I wonder, first of all, though, as well, it's so easy for us just to talk about AI as a tool. It is a threat as well, and I wonder where we strike the right balance between regulation and innovation, because there's a danger that if we err too much on the regulation side, we stifle innovation, and yet at the same time we're aware we can't let the power of AI fall into the hands of a few.
Yeah, the UK regulation actually is going about it, we think, in a really pragmatic way. So they're taking regulators with domain expertise, so financial services, for example, and asking those regulators to look after the use of AI. So if you regulate the use cases of AI rather than trying to license or regulate the technology itself, then we think that's going to be much faster, allow companies to innovate. Obviously, all needs to be done safely, responsibly, and without bias. And that's the responsibility of those who develop AI from the get-go, all the way through to those who innovate with AI in the use cases. So having that regulation all the way through the value chain, super important.
And Kiran, I'm interested in all of this. Everything we've talked about so far is about how it breaks down barriers, it's cross-border. And actually, the businesses still need to think about their business in a very different way, that this isn't about, individual markets anymore. It's not even about continents. It's about a global opportunity when it comes to business and how they operate cross borders, these borders that are essentially redundant when it comes to the way we will do business in future.
Yeah, I think you just heard some of the predictions of what AI will do for our businesses in the future. And I do think it's going to be a borderless world. And I think we all need to really know how to really work and do our businesses in that borderless world. And so technology is going to drive our future, and companies are investing hugely in quickly coming to speed with all that technology is throwing at them. So I think it's going to be a very, very interesting time for all of us, and we have to keep pace with what's happening. And to answer your question, I think regulations will have to evolve and keep pace with technology. I don't think you should start blocking technologies ahead of time. I think that's the way the world is moving. And I'm very excited with what's happening in India. India has one of the largest digital public infrastructures created, largely because we were so tech-driven and tech-focused. I mean, it's even said that because of our demographics, India is going to be supplying 25% of tech talent to the world by 2050. So I think everything is moving in the right way, but it's a technology-driven world for sure.
And Rain, give me a sense of how ethics come into all of this, because from a business point of view, we've established the way that business should and could operate. The technology changes this, and I think there's two very key things on the ethics around the use of that technology, but also the tech divide of the haves and the have-nots and how we make that equitable access. How do your members, and certainly how are businesses approaching that challenge?
Well, I think there's sort of two elements to it. And one is, as Nicola was saying, is thinking about what does global regulation look like, and how do we make sure that we are working with partners across the world to have that proportionate regulation. And actually the UK has, with the Bletchley Summit and Declaration, has helped to sort of bring regulators across borders, because as we know, this technology is not domain specific, it doesn't stay in one country. So I think having that international effort is really important. And I think the UK has led the way in some of that effort. And I think many businesses recognize that. I think then the other element is thinking about, as we're developing, as you say, thinking about what does good access look like, and how do we use it to not make inequality within our society worse, but actually use it to provide access to services. And I think we had a great example in the talk just before that a lot of our businesses talk to about the ability to access healthcare, the ability to access legal services, the ability to almost have the democratization of some of those services. So I think if we have the right regulation in place, then we'll almost see that happen as we see the diffusion of the technology and more businesses. But you know, it all has to come from a plan for sustainable growth within individual countries.
The time is tight. So Lavanya and Nicola, a final thought from the pair of you, please, if I can, on skills, about what you need right now, because every business that I talk to says they are struggling to get the people that they need. Two very different businesses, but I assume facing similar challenges in getting the people you need. Where is the greatest shortfall right now?
Well, I think, look, the problems are well understood. I think it's a question of what can companies do to distinguish themselves and be able to get after that very short resource pool that's there. And increasingly we find that, you know, what employees are looking for in terms of a fulfilling career, the need to work in a diverse environment, the attractiveness of some of the benefits that companies can provide. For example, one of the things that we do in Diageo is we give everybody in the company who is having a child, whichever way they choose to have a child, 6 months of paid parental leave, men or women. These are some of the things that companies can do to attract that small resource pool. And the second thing is, how do you upskill people within the company? And we talked about AI, we talked about regulation. One of the things that we're increasingly beginning to realize is that each individual person needs to understand the responsibility that they play in a digital world, and self-regulate almost.
Nicola, do you have the people you need, and where are they coming from?
Yeah, look, if I speak on an industry perspective, I really like your point about India exporting skills. Last year alone, there were 2 million tech jobs in the UK not filled. So the demand is huge, not just to invent and develop the technology, but to drive adoption of it. So we absolutely need more skills. It's the responsibility of governments, companies, NGOs, all to work together to drive that. And then our responsibility, each of us, to figure out how do we work alongside AI without being fearful of it, and upskill ourselves accordingly. We've got an ambition to skill 30 million people globally by 2030, 2 million of them in the next 2 years in AI alone. Other tech companies have similar initiatives. So there's a lot going on, but there's an awful lot to do.
I could talk all day with you about this. Our time is up, I'm afraid, but it's been a joy to talk to you all. Thank you so much. Kiran, Rain, Nicola, and Lavanya, thank you.
Thank you.